Gabriel, then Deji.
Hi, thank you for the briefing in the name of the UN Correspondent Association. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. So my first question is about, or a few follow-ups to things you said. You talked about that we need more UN boots on the ground. Could you elaborate? What do you mean by that exactly? And then you said that you met General Burhan and Representative RSF. Do you mean Hamaditi, General Hamaditi, and uh, how did these talks go? I mean, you have promises, but how is there any guarantees from international parties who can put more pressure on these on them to get more aid and the last one regarding the Security Council. Do you believe that there should be an arm embargo on Sudan? Thank you. On all parties. Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Steph. So I felt since going just under a year ago, my first week in the job, that we do need this more visible presence for UN humanitarians inside Darfur. We've had all sorts of challenges getting people into Darfur and more widely across Sudan in the numbers that they are needed. I want that presence really for three reasons. Firstly, because it's a form of protection. Civilians and survivors tell us that when they see us there, they feel safer. They feel less at risk from retaliation and from this conflict spreading towards Tawila, for example, which would be catastrophic. Also, to make sure that we're negotiating the access we need for our convoys and working with our NGO colleagues who are such a key part of this effort. I mentioned NRC and SAVE, but there are many other key partners operating on the ground, and also then to make sure that we're getting the delivery right. Because of the aid cuts, we're having to hyper-prioritize the work we do, and that means we need those people on the ground really making sure that aid gets where it's needed. On the contacts with the RSF, I had a call with Hamaditi a couple of weeks ago as part of the preparations for this surge of aid that we want to see and this surge of engagement. I met on the ground just local representatives of the RSF. I think that they certainly heard from me this pressure for us to have complete unhindered access, safe passage, and for the atrocities to stop and for accountability. That's a conversation I've been having with the senior civilian official as well throughout of the RSF throughout this visit and in advance of this visit. But as you say, we do need that sustained international pressure. We're seeing it. Secretary Rubio has been very clear in recent days on this. We're seeing it from across the region as well, on all the parties to give us that humanitarian access and to bring this conflict to an end. On the arms embargo, I'll hand that one back to Steph. I think he'll have a wiser answer than I do, but I would be straying outside my humanitarian lane, which, as Steph knows, I'm very diligent about not stepping outside of ever. And so with gratitude to him, I'll let him tell you our view on that.
You are a diplomat, Tom. Very good. I'll answer that later. Gabriel?
Hello, Mr. Fletcher. This is Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. Thanks for the briefing. And we took note of all your social media content while you were in Sudan and still are there. It was quite helpful to get a sense of what you're seeing and hearing on the ground. Two quick questions. One is, you said you had, in your words, tough discussions with the RSF, but then you said you have reached some sort of agreement for full access and safe passage. Full access and safe passage mean different things to different people. Can you explain your understanding of what it means, what you think coming out of that meeting full access means between you and the RSF? And second question is, El Fasher, you described it as a crime scene. We don't know how many people are left even in El Fasher to get humanitarian aid. What is your thinking in terms of trying to get in there, and when and how, and would it even be a humanitarian mission at this point? Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriel, and great questions. So I know what we mean by full access, and those were the commitments I was seeking from the RSF and actually from other parties on the ground, are that we get unhindered access to people on the basis of need, and that this is never politicized, that we don't go in, of course, with any military accompaniments and so on, that we are going in under our own steam. Aligned with the principles of neutrality and independence and impartiality. Safe passage means that our UN humanitarians and the humanitarian community more widely, the NGOs too, are able to get up and down those roads, Tawila to Korma into Al-Fasha, and to work in Al-Fasha without these threats of drones, of airstrikes, of violence from parties on the ground. We, as you often hear me say, last year was the deadliest year to be a humanitarian worker, and Sudan was right up there, I think number 2 on that list, and it's not a great list to be near the top of. In terms of when we get into Al-Fasha, I wouldn't want to put a deadline on it, because we want to test our conditions and make sure we're confident that they will be met. But my hope is that this is the work of days and maybe weeks and not of months. We need to get in absolutely urgently. And as you suggest, of course, from my perspective, we want to get the humanitarian convoys on the road, but other parts of the UN, Volker Turk has been very clear on this in his briefings, will also want to get people in to investigate what's happened and to bear witness to what has happened. And so that will be a key part of the conversation about who goes in when and in what order. Thank you.
This is Zina from the IM and Free News. So you said international, you are calling for more international pressure. What's the role of the UN to make it true and real? And what's the use of the humanitarian aid if the conflict doesn't stop?
Yeah, I think that's a... Oh, have I lost you, Gina? Did you have more, Zina?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, we need that sustained international pressure. This has been my key message really to the member states and the Security Council. I think we are seeing more of that now, but with the emergence of the Quad and the substantive work that they've been doing, of course, the work that Special Envoy Lamamra is leading as well. We need just that sustained pressure on all the actors to demonstrate that this has gone on too long, and that the methods of war, the level of impunity around this conflict is utterly unacceptable. Zina, sorry, you cut out. I missed the second half of your question.
What's the use of the call of on more passage of the humanitarian aid if the conflict doesn't stop itself? How you are acting as the United Nations to make it true and stop this conflict?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a key question. We can't just be endlessly the sticking plaster that's responding to a conflict that shouldn't be so hard to stop. I know how complex it is, that the politics around this are fiendishly difficult, the regional dynamics. But as I said to the Security Council the other day, they've got to compare themselves to previous generations of Security Councils, previous generations of diplomats, future generations of diplomats. Would they have found it so difficult to end this conflict? And I know that so many people, including our colleague, Mr. Lamamra, are working incredibly hard on that. But this, I feel this everywhere. This is a factor of our work globally right now, that we humanitarians, we're the ambulance that goes into these crises to try and help the survivors. But effectively now, in the absence of sustained international engagement, the world is also then saying to us, could you also be the firemen, the fire people, and put out the fire as well? But it's doing that while saying, but by the way, we're not going to put much water in your fire engine, and the fire engine will get shot at as it heads out towards those survivors and civilians. So this is getting really hard, and humanitarians are getting pulled into political situations and processes that aren't our core business. We are meant to be the ambulance. We're not meant to be the ones putting the fire out.
Dulcie, and then Deji, and then...
Hi, this is Dulcie Lineback from Pest Blue. I wondered if you saw in your travels the emergency response rooms. Are they still operating in Darfur? Thanks.
Yeah, great people, great colleagues, and I was there. I went to see them in Korma, and just incredibly courageous colleagues doing vital work. You know, it's a reminder that because it's been so difficult often for the international community to really engage on the ground as close as we should be to those we serve, you know, the real front line of this effort is those national community-based NGOs. And one of my objectives as ERC is to ensure that we are getting half of our funding through our pooled funds to national NGOs, local NGOs, because we really have to, this is such a tough time for the community as a whole, but we have to make sure that those people on the front line are getting the financial support that they need.
Thank you, Tom. Just